Good afternoon, everyone. We'll start from page 64, second last paragraph. Sir Alexander smiled his thanks and thought carefully. So you remember that the Mandarin told him that there is a Chinese custom through which he can repay the debt of, repay this obligation which was done on him by that craftsman. And what was that tradition? That if a stranger has shown some generosity towards you, then you should pay that within the same calendar year. You should pay that kindness repay that kindness within the same calendar year. So this was told to Sir Alexander by the Mandarin, right? Because he thought that he saw that Sir Alexander was very puzzled, and so he thought of telling him about this Chinese custom. And so Sir Alexander smiled his thanks. So Sir Alexander was very grateful that the Mandarin told him about this custom and thought carefully about the Mandarin's word. And he started thinking about how he should repay, how he can repay this obligation of the craftsman. Once back in his official residence, he went immediately to the embassy's extensive library to see if he could discover a realistic value of the little masterpiece. So the first thing which he was required to do was to find out the real value of that masterpiece. How will you repay? Only when you know the real exact value of, if you want to repay for some commodity or some gift which has been given to you, you need to at least find out the value of that. So he went to the library and he started searching for, started searching for the real value of that statue by looking into several books. After much diligent research, he came across a drawing of a Ming statue. So after searching for a long, diligent means after a lot of careful effort, after trying for a long period of time, he came across a drawing of that statue, of a statue which was very similar, which was almost an exact copy of the one now in his possession. So the photo which he came across, the picture which he came across was exactly the same as which he possessed. So exact copy of the one now in his possession, and with the help of the Mandarin, he was able to assess his work. And so now he has got the picture in one of the books, and so he, with the help of the Mandarin, he tried to find out the real value of that statue. A figure that came to almost 3 years' emoluments for a servant of the crown. So it came to almost 3 years of his salary, right? Whatever he earned for 3 years, that was the current cost of that statue at that time, right? So emoluments means the money which you get with normally the people who work for these who work in high ranks, so the money which they get, that is known as emoluments, right? So the earnings of people is emoluments. So the minister discussed the problem with Lady Heathcote. Now it was a huge sum of money, right? 3 years emolument of such a senior officer, of a minister. So it was, the statue was really very, very expensive. So now he discussed, so he needed to discuss this, the whole thing with his wife. And so he called his wife in England and discussed the problem with Lady Heathcote, and she left her husband in no doubt as to the course of action he must take. And so Lady Heathcote also gave her consent and helped him to follow the course of action which he wanted, whatever he wanted to do. The following week, the minister dispatched a letter by the private messenger to his bankers, Cox and Company in the Strand, London, requesting that they send a large part of the savings to reach him in Peking as soon as possible. So the next day, he contacted the bank that he needs to withdraw a large part of his saving. 3 years emoluments is a huge sum, so he wanted to withdraw a huge sum of his savings. And he asked his bankers to send that amount. Those were not the days of ATM machines, right, or online transfer. So the money was sent physically from one place to another. So that is why he asked the bankers to send the money as soon as possible to Peking. When the funds arrived, 9 weeks later, the minister again approached the Mandarin. So it took 9 weeks for the funds to arrive, for the money to arrive, and then he again went to the Mandarin. Why? Because he needed his help further. Who listened to his questions and gave him the details he had asked for 7 days later. So whatever he wanted to do with the money, he discussed that with the Mandarin, and then the Mandarin explained to him that he will find out whatever he wants, whatever Sir Alexander wants, and tell him. So he took another 7 days to find out the details of what was asked by Mr. Heathcote. The Mandarin had discovered that the little craftsman, he asked the Mandarin to find out about the family and about the parentage and about the background of this craftsman who gifted him the statue. See, once you are returning the gift, you need to first understand what the person actually needs. You cannot gift anything and everything to any person. You will need to estimate his requirements. What should I gift him so that that particular thing is useful, right? So that was asked by Sir Alexander. He asked the Mandarin to find out these details. So the Mandarin had discovered that the little craftsman, Yung Li, the name of that craftsman was Yung Li, came from the old and trusted family of Yung Shao, who had for some 500 years been craftsmen. So this craftsmanship was their profession from several generations. From the past 500 years, the people in their family, they have been craftsmen. Sir Alexander also learned that many of Yung Li's ancestors had examples of their work in the palaces of the Manchu prince, right? So they were like very renowned and famous craftsmen of China, and their work was so great, right, that their work was even put up in the palaces. The work of his ancestors. Yung Li himself was growing old and wished to retire to the hills above the village where his ancestors had always died. So again, this was the Chinese tradition that the people in China, they used to leave their home after they grow old, really old. They used to go to the hills to die. Right? The last days of their life were spent far away from their houses. Right? They entrusted the job and the responsibility of taking care of the family was entrusted upon their offsprings and upon their sons and daughters, and then they used to leave. So this was again their tradition. So Yung Li himself was growing old. So this person himself, the craftsman who gifted the Chinese statue, he himself was growing very old, and so he was planning to hand over everything to his son and go to the hills. His son was ready to take over the workshop from him and continue the family tradition. So, like his ancestors had done, so he also was planning to hand over everything to his son and go to the hills, as per the tradition. The minister thanked the Mandarin for his diligence and had only one more request of him. So, diligence means, again, the thorough work which he did, the careful and the skillful work which he did, he was thanked by the minister for that. The Mandarin listened, then he made one more request from this Mandarin. What was that request? The Mandarin listened sympathetically to the ambassador from England and returned to the palace to seek advice. So we are not told what was the request, right? Whatever the request was, the Mandarin agreed and he went to the ambassador from England and returned to the palace to seek advice. And then he went to the palace to seek advice, whatever he wanted. He must have asked for something which required the Mandarin to go to the palace, that is to meet the queen. A few days later, the empress granted Sir Alexander's request. So it was some kind of permission from the queen, right? Because he was in China, he was a foreigner, he didn't belong to that country. To do anything in that country, he needed the permission and the sanction of the queen. So this was the request which was made by Sir Alexander to the Mandarin, that he should go to the palace and ask for permission. Almost a year to the day, the minister accompanied the Mandarin, set out again from Peking for the village of Kali. So Again, almost after a year, he again went back to the same village where he met that craftsman. When Sir Alexander arrived, he immediately dismounted from his horse and entered the workshop that he remembered so well. So he got down from his horse and went inside the shop. The old man was seated at his bench. His flat hat slightly askew. Slightly askew means slightly crooked, means the hat which he was wearing was not straight, it was slanted, right, or crooked. A piece of uncarved ivory held lovingly between his fingers, and he was at his work carving a piece of ivory, trying to give it some shape. He looked up from his work and shuffled towards the minister. And the moment he saw the minister, he got up and shuffled. Shuffle means walk again, walk in a sliding manner. That is shuffling. So he shuffled towards the minister, not recognizing his guest immediately because he had grown even older. So he didn't recognize the minister from a distance, and so he came towards the minister, and then after having a close look, he finally recognized him towards the minister, not recognizing his guest immediately until he could almost touch the foreign giant. Foreign giant is Sir Alexander. Because of his huge structure, he is referred to as the foreign giant, right? So he came very close to Sir Alexander, and then only he was able to recognize Sir Alexander. Then he bowed low, and the moment he recognized, he greeted him. The minister spoke through the Mandarin, and then the minister, because he was talking in English, he needed the help of the Mandarin. So he spoke through the Mandarin. The Mandarin translated everything in Chinese to the craftsman. I have returned, sir, within this calendar year to repay my debt. So this was said by Sir Alexander. He said that I have come back to repay my debt. There was no need, Your Excellency. My family is honored that the little statue lives in the great embassy and may one day be admired by the people of your own land. So he said that there was absolutely no requirement, there was absolutely no need of it, that you should come back and return the and try to repay your debt. I and my family members, they were happy that now the statue is being admired in some foreign land. Our piece of art is being admired in some foreign land. That was enough for us that was enough for us to be happy. The minister could think of no words to form an adequate reply and simply requested the old man should accompany him on the short journey. And so the minister couldn't think of any appropriate and any proper reply, and so he just requested this craftsman to go along with him on a short journey. He wanted to take the craftsman to some place. The craftsman agreed without question, and the three men set out on donkeys towards the north. They traveled for over 2 hours up a thin winding path. Winding path means the path which is not straight, right? Curvy path, meandering path towards the north. They traveled for over 2 hours up a thin winding path into the hills behind the craftsman's workshop. And when they reached the village of Matian, so this was the village where they reached. After traveling for 2 hours, they reached this village. They were met by another Mandarin. And when they reached this village, another Chinese person met them, who bowed low to the minister and requested Sir Alexander and the craftsman to continue their journey with him on foot. And now, after reaching Matian, that village, their journey was, their further journey was to be done on foot, right? So they were supposed to dismount from the donkeys. They walked in silence to a far side of the village and only stopped when they had reached a hollow in the hills. So they walked for a long period of time, and then they very quietly they walked, that is, nobody was talking to each other. The craftsman must be in great suspense, right? Not able to understand where he was being taken by these people. And so everyone, the minister also, he was an exact man, you remember, and all these sophisticated and exact people, they don't talk without reason or when it is not required. So they accompanied each other in silence, and then they reached a hollow. Hollow, what is a hollow? The hollow is an area which is lower than the surface, right? Lower than the normal surface. So that is the hollow. So they reached an area where the ground was lower than the normal surface. In the hill from which where there was a magnificent view of the valley all the way down to Halichwar. So they were traveling on the top of the hill. So when they looked down, the village looked really beautiful. The view of the village was magnificent. It was wonderful. Valley all the way down to Halichwar. In the hollow stood a newly completed small white house of the most perfect proportion. So in that hollow, what was in that hollow? In that hollow, there was a newly constructed white colored house, right? With perfect propositions. Means the house, the measurement and everything was so perfect about that house. It was a flawless house. Two stone lion dogs, tongues hanging over their lips. And so at the entrance, there were two lion dogs made of stone, and their tongues were popping out of their mouth, hanging out of their mouth, guarded the front entrance. So they were not real dogs, they were made of stone. The little old craftsman who had not spoken since he had left his workshop remained mystified. So this craftsman, this old man, what was the name of that old man? Yung Li, right? So he was completely mesmerized with the beauty of that house. And so this old man who didn't utter a single word throughout his journey was mystified. Mystified means in utter confusion when he looked at the house, because there were several questions inside his head. First thing was why he was brought here, and then such a wonderful, the beauty of the house. Because of all these things, he was completely confused and lost by the purpose of his journey until the minister turned to him and offered. And then what happened? The minister turned towards this man, this old man, and then he said, "A small, inadequate gift, and my feeble attempt to repay you in kind." So he said to the craftsman that please accept this house as a small gift, and it is my feeble. Feeble means weak attempt. I know that that masterpiece, that great masterpiece, that great statue cannot be repaid. It's only a small attempt, a small try on my behalf to repay the debt. The craftsman fell to his knees and begged forgiveness of the Mandarin, as he knew it was forbidden for an artisan to accept gifts from a foreigner. Again, another Chinese tradition, right? Another Chinese tradition was that the Chinese people, they were not allowed to accept gifts from foreigners. And Sir Alexander was a foreigner. So in their community, it was something which was prohibited. And so the Mandarin got really scared and he got down on his knees and he begged for forgiveness. Why? Because he could not, he said that he cannot accept that gift. He cannot accept that house as a gift. The Mandarin raised the frightened blue figure. Blue figure is the craftsman because he was dressed in blue robe, right? Fully robe, he was dressed in blue color. So that blue figure is a reference to the craftsman. From the ground, explaining to his countrymen that the Empress herself had sanctioned the minister's request. And so the Mandarin, he lifted the craftsman and he said that don't worry, the queen, the empress of China herself has sanctioned, means herself has granted this request of Sir Alexander. The Mandarin was sent to the empress. The Mandarin was sent to the empress to for this purpose only, right? Sent to the palace to meet the empress and get his request sanctioned by the queen. So he explained this to the craftsman that there is no problem, you can accept this gift, this house, because the queen herself has given her consent. A smile of joy came over the face of the craftsman, and he slowly walked up to the doorway of the beautiful little house, unable to resist, running his hand over the carved lion dog. So the moment he heard this, he was very happy, and then he went towards the house and moved his hand over the dogs, the lion dogs which were there at the entrance, which were carved at the entrance. The three travelers then spent over an hour admiring the little house before returning in silent mutual happiness. Mutual happiness? Now everyone was happy. Craftsman was happy because he got a house. Sir Alexander was happy because he got the statue, and secondly, he was able to repay the debt. There was no burden, no kind of emotional burden, right? That he took away something without paying for it, right? So he was also happy, and Mandarin was happy because everyone was happy. So everyone was happy. So they spent an hour there, and then they came back to the workshop in Harlechman. The two men then thus parted, honor satisfied. So now honor of both the parties was satisfied. And Sir Alexander wrote to his embassy that night, content that his actions had met with the approval of the Mandarin as well as Lady Heathcote. And Sir Alexander was content, he was satisfied that whatever he did, everyone was happy with it. Even Lady Heathcote was not annoyed that my husband has wasted so much money. And the Mandarin was also happy, and the craftsman was also happy. So he went home, went back to the embassy, satisfied and happy. The minister completed his tour of duty in Peking, and the empress awarded him the Silver Star of China. So his term of service was done, and so because he worked really well, he did his job well, so he was awarded with a Silver Star of China by the Empress of China, right, for his wonderful service. And the grateful queen added the KCVO. KCVO means Knight Commander of the Victorian Order. Now this was an honor, the knighthood, which was given to people. It was a recognition which was given by the Queen of England. The full form is Knight Commander of the Victorian Order. Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order. So this was an honor which is bestowed by the Queen of England. The Queen at England was also happy, right, by this performance, and so she gave him this title of knighthood to his already long list of decoration. And he himself, he was earlier also he was a very decorated officer, right, with a lot of awards and titles. So this added to the list of decorations which he already possessed. After a few weeks back at the Foreign Office, clearing the China desk, Sir Alexander retired to his native Yorkshire. And now because it was the last term which he served, so after this he retired, and then he went back to his hometown in Yorkshire, the only English county whose inhabitants still hope to be born and die in the same place, not unlike the Chinese. So this is the only county. County means the province or the territory. So Yorkshire was the only territory. What was the tradition of the people of Yorkshire? That when they grow old, it doesn't matter to how many places they travel throughout their life. But when they grow old and it's time for them to die, they come back to their hometown and they come back to their ancestral home and they die there. So this was the tradition of Yorkshire, and that was perhaps the only county or the only province which followed that tradition. Very unlike the Chinese. Unlike the Chinese. Why? Because earlier we have been told about the Chinese tradition. What was the Chinese tradition? That once they grow old, they move out of their house and they go to the hills to die. So that is why it's written. Sir Alexander spent his final years in the home of his late father. So Sir Alexander spent the last years of his life in the house of his father. After retirement, he went back to his ancestral town, that is Yorkshire, and he spent the last days of his life with his wife. Good, it's right. So he spent the last days of his life with his wife in his father's house. And the little Ming Emperor. And the little Ming Emperor, that is the statue of the Ming Emperor. What was the name of the emperor? What was the name of the emperor? Kung, Emperor Kung. And the statue of Emperor Kung, that is that Chinese statue which got from that craftsman. That statue also accompanied Sir Alexander. Right? The statue occupied the center of the mantelpiece in the drawing room for all to see and admire. And where was that statue kept? In his ancestral home, in the ancestral home of Sir Alexander Heathcote. It was kept on the mantelpiece. What is the mantelpiece? The shelf which is there above the fireplace. In those days, the people, they had fireplace, right? So the shell, you must have seen in the television, there normally the photo frames are kept. In TV, you will always see the photo frame, right? So the statue was kept on that mantelpiece, the shelf above the fireplace, in the drawing room for all to see and admire. So was kept there for all the people coming to their house to admire. Being an exact man, Sir Alexander wrote a long and a detailed. Because Sir Alexander was an exact man, a man who loved precision, and so his will also be a detailed one, right? He will not leave anything to doubts and speculation. No ambiguity in his life. So he wrote a long and detailed will, in which he left precise instructions for the disposal of his estate, in which he mentioned clear instructions how his property is to be dealt with, what is to be done to his estate, to his property, wealth, and everything to the minutest detail, including what was to happen to the little statue after his death. And because this little statue was also the property of Sir Alexander, so he didn't forget to mention about what is to be done to that little statue, little Chinese statue after his death. Now, what he mentioned in the will, he bequeathed the Emperor Kong to his first son, requesting that he do the same in order that the statue might always pass to the first son. So this was mentioned by Sir Alexander in his will, that what he just gave that statue to the firstborn of the family, that is his first son, and then he requested, it was also mentioned in the will, that he is also supposed to do the same. His son is also supposed to give away that statue to his firstborn, to his first son, requesting that he do the same in order that the statue might always pass to the first son or a daughter if the direct male line is faltered, or if there is a daughter, if that male line is faltered means change. If that male line is changed, if there is no male son, then the statue will automatically go to the daughter. He also made a provision that the statue was never to be disposed of. And then the second important instruction was that this statue is not to be sold. Disposed of means sold under any circumstance. Disposed of unless the family's honor was at stake. Unless the family's honor is at question, unless the reputation and the honor of the family is in question, nobody is going to sell that statue. This was mentioned. Sir Alexander Heathcote died at the stroke of midnight on his 70th birthday. So even his death was very exact, right? He died exactly at the stroke of midnight on his 70th birthday. He was such an exact man. His firstborn, and then now this is important because there will be a repetition of names, so you need to be very careful. Who was the son of Sir Alexander Heathcote? Sir James Heathcote was his eldest son, and so he automatically got the Chinese statue. His firstborn, Major James Heathcote, was serving his queen in the Boer War. So his son joined army, and he was serving the Queen of England in the Boer War. At the time, he came into the possession of the Ming Emperor. The major was a fighting man, commissioned with the Duke of Wellington's regiment. So this was the name of the regiment. And although he had little interest in culture, even he could see the family heirloom was no ordinary treasure. So though he was not like his father, like Sir Alexander, who was very much interested in the cultural and the traditional commodities and who had a lot of interest in all these things, he didn't have any interest. But then he was aware of the fact that because this statue is a family heirloom, and so this is definitely something valuable. So in spite of not being very much interested in all these cultural things, still he took great care of the statue. He realized the importance of the statue and considered it to be a treasure. So he loaned the statue to the regimental mess at Halifax. So where did the statue go now? So he just gave that statue to the mess at Halifax, where these soldiers, they used to dine, in order that the emperor could be displayed in the dining room for his brother officers to appreciate. So that all these soldiers and his fellow men can admire and appreciate the beauty of that statue. So it went to the mess at Halifax. When James Heathcote became colonel of the Dukes, so he was promoted as the colonel of the Dukes, the emperor stood proudly on the table alongside the trophies won at Waterloo. These are the names of the battles fought, right? The Battle of Waterloo, Sebastopol in the Crimea, and Madrid. So these are the names of the battles. Because he was a soldier, so he fought all these battles and all these wars. And there the Ming statue remained until the colonel's retirement to his father's house in Yorkshire. So the statue remained there along with the trophies which this person, that is Mr. James Heathcote, he got several trophies for his bravery in war, for his performance in war. So the statue remained there. And then what happened? Finally, this person, that is Mr. James Heathcote, he retired. And when he retired, he also went back to his ancestral home in Yorkshire, like his father. And so the statue also accompanied him. Returned once again to the drawing room mantel. And then the statue returned to the same place, that is the mantelpiece in the drawing room. The colonel was not a man to disobey his late father, even in death. So because he was a very obedient son, so he also wrote down similar instructions for his successors. So even during the time of his death, and he left clear instructions that the heirloom must always be passed to the firstborn of the Heathcotes, unless the family honor was in jeopardy. Whether the jeopardy means that the family honor is at risk, right? So only when there is family honor and the family reputation is at risk, then only the statue will be sold. He mentioned the same thing, whatever was written by his father. Colonel James Heathcote, MC, did not die a soldier's death. So he didn't die the death of a soldier. Did not die a soldier's death mean what will be a soldier's death? When a soldier dies in the battlefield, that will be a soldier's death. So he didn't. Mr. James Heathcote, Colonel James Heathcote, he didn't die the death of a soldier. Why? Because he lived his entire life and then he died when he grew old, like any other common man. So he didn't die a soldier's death. He simply fell asleep one night by the fire, the Yorkshire Post on his lap. So Yorkshire Post is the name of the journal. So he died like this. One day while he was sleeping, while he slept, he dozed off while reading this journal, and then he finally slipped into the eternal sleep. He died this way. The colonel's firstborn, now Mr. James Heathcote's son. The colonel's firstborn, the Reverend Alexander Heathcote. See, there is a repetition of names. So the name of the son of James Heathcote was also Alexander Heathcote, and he was a reverend, means he was a priest. Was at the time presiding over a small flock in the parish of Mud Parish means church, Mud Hadlam in Hertfordshire. So he was a priest in that church in Hertfordshire. After burying his father with military honor, because his father was a soldier, so he was buried with all the military honors. He placed the little Ming emperor on the mantelpiece of the vicarage. Vicarage means the official residence of a priest, right? So the residence of a priest which is given by the church. So that is the vicarage. So he was kept. Now where did the statue go? Now the statue went to the vicarage along with Reverend Alexander Heathcote. Few members of the Mothers Union appreciated the masterpiece. So this is the name of some union, right? Some organization. They appreciated the masterpiece, but one or two old ladies were heard to remark on its delicate craft. So because it was kept in the vicarage, so the people and the women who used to visit that vicarage, they used to appreciate the carving and the carving of that statue. And it was not until Reverend became the right Reverend and the little statue found its way into the bishop's palace. And then Mr. Reverend Alexander Heathcote was also promoted and he became the right Reverend. And then the statue went from that vicarage to the bishop's palace because he was promoted. So his house also changed. And so the statue also went to the bishop's palace, that the emperor attracted the admiration he deserved. Now, because he was the right vicarage, so obviously large number of people, the statue went to the bishop's palace, and to the bishop's palace, Large number of people paid visit. They used to visit the bishop's palace, and so the statue was admired by many people. The admiration he deserved. The admiration he deserved means the admiration and the praise which the statue actually deserved from large number of people. Then it got that in the bishop's palace. Many of those who visited the palace and heard the statue of how the bishop's grandfather had acquired the Ming statue were fascinated to learn of the disparity between the magnificent statue and its use. And what happened? The people who visited the bishop's palace, few of them were told the story of how the statue came all the way from China and how his grandfather got that statue. So this story was told to them. And so then they see, once they were told the statue, they could, what was their comment? They said that yes, the statue is very good, and there is how much difference is there between the statue and the base of the statue. After knowing this story, they used to talk about the difference in the statue and the base of the statue. This is what happens. You don't tell the real story to the people, and then they will say a different thing. Once they know the reality, they change. They say, yeah, that is why this base is not so attractive as the statue. So they came up with these kinds of comments. It always made a good after dinner story. So this story was narrated several times after dinner. God takes even his own ambassadors. God takes even his own ambassadors means this priest, that is Reverend Alexander Heathcote. He also died because he was an ambassador of God, right? So he also died. But he did not do so before allowing Bishop Heathcote to complete a will, leaving the statue to his son. But he was given enough time by God to write a will. And so he also wrote in his will and mentioned about, the transference of that statue to his son, with his grandfather's exact instructions carefully repeated, and repeated the exact instructions which were given by his grandfather. The bishop's son. Now, who was the son of this bishop? That is Reverend Alexander Heathcote. His name was again Captain James Heathcote. Means his son joined the army, was serving officer in his grandfather's regiment. So like his grandfather, who was the grandfather of this James Heathcote, Captain James Heathcote? His grandfather was Colonel James Heathcote, right? So he, like his grandfather, he also joined the army. So the Ming statue returned to the mess table in Hen. So the statue again, because he joined the same regiment like his grandfather, and so the statue came back to the mess at Halifax. During the emperor's absence, the regimental trophies had been augmented by those struck from Ypres, the Marne, and the Verdun. So these are the names of the battles. Ypres is a place in France. It's a French word. So augmented means increased. So when all this time, when the statue was missing from that shelf in the mess at Halifax, what happened? The place of the statue was taken over by a lot of trophies which were won from these battles, right? These battles were fought, and a lot of trophies were won, and so they were kept in that shelf. So that is what he means to say, that during the emperor's absence. During the emperor's absence means during the absence of that emperor, that is Emperor Kung's statue, the regimental trophies had been augmented. Augmented means increased by those struck. So where were these trophies won, which now occupied place on that shelf in the mess at Halifax? They were won from Ypres, Marne, and Verdun. The regiment was once again at war with Germany, and then the regiment again entered into a war with Germany. And young Captain James Heathcote was killed on the beaches of Dunkirk and died in this state. So what happened? This person didn't get time to make a will. He died a soldier's death. He died in the battlefield while fighting. So he didn't get any time to make a will. Intestate means die without making a will. That is to die intestate. Right. So he died intestate, means he died without making a will before his death because he died while fighting. Therefore, English law, the known wishes of his great grandfather, and common sense prevail. Now, what will happen? So, now what was done to the statue was decided according to the English law and according to the past wills which were made by his great grandfather. So you remember Sir Alexander Heathcote, the first one, he made a will that this tradition is to be followed, right? So that was taken into account and the statue was handed over to his son. That is the son of Captain James Heathcote, who was killed in the battlefield. And common sense prevailed. And as per the common sense also, the statue should be transferred to his son. And so the statue and the little emperor came into the possession of the captain's 2 years old son. So the son of this captain was just 2 years old when his father died. And so it came into the possession of his son. It now became the property of his son. Alex Heathcote. Now what was the name of his son? His name was Alex Heathcote. Alex Heathcote was, alas, not of the mettle of his doughty ancestors, and he grew up feeling no desire to serve anyone other than himself. So this person, Alex Heathcote, was not like his ancestor. Mettle means having that. Mettle means the ability to fight the difficult situations, the ability to fight the problems, the courage and the guts which you have to fight the difficulties and the problems of your life. That means the mettle. And doughty means again brave and courageous. So this person, the son of Captain James Heathcote, he was not of the same mettle, right? He was not like his ancestors, brave and courageous. And he grew up feeling no desire to serve anyone other than himself. His ancestors, they served the crown or they served the country. If you talk about the ancestors of this person, Alex Heathcote, all of them, either they were serving the crown or they were serving the country or they were serving God. But this person, Sir Alex Heathcote, he didn't have any intention of serving anyone except himself. So he was a very self-centered and a very selfish kind of a person. When Captain James had been so tragically killed, Alexander's mother lavished everything on the boy. So Alex here means Alexander's mother. This is talking about Alex. So what happened when his father died? The mother, because now the mother had only the son, so the mother started pampering her son a lot. Lavished everything on the boy, means everything which was in her capacity. The mother gave to the son. Boy, that her meager income would allow. That her meager income would allow means that whatever her small income could afford, she gave that to the son. It didn't help, and it was not entirely young Alex's fault that he grew up to be. So you cannot say that it was entirely or completely the fault of Alex, the way he grew up, the type of a person he became. Because over pampering, too much pampering will always spoil the child, right? Which his mother did. So he came to be a spoiled brat. And he grew up to be, and in the words of his grandmother, so his grandmother called him a selfish, spoiled little brat. Means he was not responsible, very selfish kind of a boy. Any problem till here? Okay. So when Alex left school, only a short time before he would have been expelled. So he left school before he was about to be, before he could have been expelled, right? The school was already planning to throw him out of the school, but before that he left. He found he could never hold down a job for more than few weeks. So he was not very consistent kind of person. He was a job hopper. He was into a job for some time and then he changed. Then he was bored with the second one also. He went for the third one. It always seemed necessary for him to spend a little more than he and finally his mother could go with. So he was in the habit of spending more than he could afford, spending more than he earned, and spending more than his mother could also afford. The good lady, deciding she could take no more of this life, departed to join all the other Heathcotes, not in Yorkshire, but in Heaven. So that mother, the mother of Alex Heathcote, after being depressed with the way his son was treating his life and the son was treating her, so she finally decided to join the rest of the Heathcotes in Heaven. Means that she finally died. She couldn't tolerate all this torture for a long period of time, and she finally left for her heavenly abode to join the rest of the Heathcliffs there. In the swinging 60s, when casinos opened in Britain, so that was it was during the age of 60s, during that era that the casinos they started opening in Britain. And what happened? Young Alex was convinced that he had found the ideal way of earning. And then this Alex started believing that the best way of earning money is gambling in these casinos, a living without actually having to do any work. Why? Because this is by playing at the casinos and gambling, where he would earn money without actually working hard for it. He developed a system for playing roulette. Roulette is a game. You know, there is a wheel with blocks, and then a ball is thrown, and then there are numbers there. So you must have seen it on television. So then the holes are there, right? Each number has a hole, and you have to guess the number, and if the ball goes into the hole which you guess, so you are a winner, right? So the wheel is rotated. So that is roulette. So he developed a system, and he devised a system of playing roulette with which it was impossible to lose. And he believed that according to his system, the system which he devised, it is not possible for anyone to lose. But what happened? He did lose, but he lost while playing according to his system. So he refined the system. So then he made some changes in his system of playing roulette, and then he again lost and promptly lost more. And promptly lost more means very quickly he lost more. He again came up with something new in his system. He tried to refine that system. He tried to make some changes in that system. And in spite of making changes, he lost some more. He refined the system once again, which resulted in him having to borrow to cover his losses. So that led to him that led to borrowing more money, because he was under so much losses that he need to so much debt that he need to pay those debts, and so he started borrowing money. Why not? If the worst came to the worst, he told himself he could always dispose of the remaining emperor. And he always thought that even if the situation was worse than the worst, then also he possesses something, he has something with him which he can always sell off. And what was that something? The Ming statue. The worst did come to the worst, and that actually happened. And each one of Alex's newly refined system took him progressively into greater debt until the casinos began to press him for payment. And so what happened? Each of his new system failed. Every time he refined and made some changes in the system of playing roulette, and then it failed, and then he was under more and more debt. And then what happened? The people from him whom he borrowed, they started pressurizing him for repayment. Press him for payment. When finally one Monday morning, Alex received an unsolicited call. Unsolicited means uninvited call, unwelcome call. It's a call which he was not expecting, right? So he got a call from two gentlemen who seemed determined to collect some 8,000 pounds he owed their master. So it was a call by two gentlemen, and they were very adamant. They talked in a very determined manner that they want 8,000 pounds, which this person, Sir Alex, had borrowed from their masters, and hinted at bodily harm if the matter was not dealt with within 14 days. And then they warned him that if he doesn't pay that amount within 14 days, what will happen? He will be harmed. He's going to get a good beating from them. Alex caved in. Caved in means To cave in means when you stop arguing, right? You stop arguing and you keep your mouth shut. So he stopped giving any explanation. He stopped offering any kind of explanation to these people. The moment they warned him, right? He just stopped pressing and resisting, and he agreed to whatever they said. After all, his great grandfather's instructions had been exact. The Ming statue was to be sold if the family honor was ever at stake. So then he thought that his grandfather's instructions have been very exact. He gave clear instructions that the statue can be sold if the family's honor is at stake. Now, he being his successor, his honor and his family's honor is at stake. Obviously, if some people comes and hits him, beats him, then everyone will come to know, and the family reputation will be jeopardized. So that is why he said that now the family's honor is at stake. So I better try to dispose of that statue, because this was the clause mentioned in the will of Sir Alexander Heathcote, first Sir Alexander Heathcote, that the statue can be sold whenever the family's honor is at stake. So now the family's honor is at stake. I think we should stop here and we'll continue further tomorrow.